So the Five Nights at Freddy's movie finally came out after 8 years of it originally being teased back in April 2015. And today we'll be discussing where the movie succeeded, how it failed as a standalone horror film and game adaptation, and just how much missed potential there really is. Disclaimer: this video is not for the purpose of attacking anyone who did or did not like the movie. It is just constructive criticism, and my personal opinion will be provided at the end. Now, I think we can all come to a mutual agreement that the animatronics and the set design were stellar and looked incredible. The animatronics were all actual costumes with people inside of them playing as the animatronics. Well, except Foxy. The animatronics move just like how robots move. It's very fluid and well done. You can't even tell that there's a person inside puppeteering the animatronic. The decision to create the animatronics using only practical effects was one of the best decisions the producers made, as I don't think the movie would have looked as good if the animatronics were made using only CGI. They were able to add much more detail and give the animatronics more life, as well as pour more passion into making them. The set was also incredible. I mean, they made an entire pizzeria for the movie. And just like with the animatronics, the commitment to practical effects is what allowed them to pour more passion into the set. This also allowed them to add more Easter eggs into the movie. The commitment to practical effects is what made the movie such a delight to look at. Everything looked and felt real, because most of it was. If we're going to talk about negatives, we first need to talk about how the movie failed as a standalone horror film and game adaptation. As someone who has been following the game since the beginning, I am well aware that FNAF doesn't build its horror by using gore, but instead builds it by using the atmosphere and, well, obviously, the gameplay. The games are labeled as horror games because they create tension by having you keep killer animatronics out of your office by checking cameras, checking your doors, and listening to audio cues, all while on a limited power supply. This helps to build tension and anxiety, and if you do happen to get jump scared by one of the animatronics, it's more scary because you're already anxious. I guess you could say the jump scare is the cherry on top of the whole game. Now, I'm not saying the whole movie has to be just this video, but I'm saying that the movie could have implemented more elements from the games into it. And we know that they could do it, and knew how to do it. The opening scene is clear evidence of this. But it feels like they abandoned these assets to focus on a mediocre story. They could have used the elements of the opening scene in the whole movie and created a good story altogether. Now, don't get me wrong, the movie did manage to spook me here and there, but half the time I was laughing at how goofy the movie was. I stopped taking it seriously when the cupcakes started flying. They could have definitely done a lot more when it comes to the horror factor. They could have added more tense-driven scenes or added more jump scares that weren't just Balloon Boy. I think they definitely wanted to make the movie scarier, as there were discussions on whether they wanted to make the film PG-13 or not. And I think deciding to make the movie PG-13 is what really held it back from being as scary as it should have been and wanted to be. And speaking of story, it wasn't that good either. They were trying to combine story elements from different games to create new lore. The movie has the premise and setting of FNAF 1, kinda, and it throws in aspects from Security Breach of all games. If they had decided to use aspects from any other game, I think the story could have made more sense. Not only that, but there were many important points in the movie that were never explained, or never explored as deeply as they should have. Like, why could Abby see the ghost children in the first place? How could Afton control the animatronics with one single drawing on the wall? Okay, I'm not gonna film too much on that one because it sounds like something FNAF novels would do, but still. Of course, these things are all probably left unanswered to give the viewers things to theorize about until the next movie, since this is FNAF. But I generally don't know how MatPat is going to explain the drawings, okay? Also, the fact that the main villain was in the movie for a maximum of 10 minutes is a lot of wasted potential. Considering the questionable choice of making Vanessa his kid, the whole Vanessa being Afton's daughter thing could have had potential if they just decided to explore her and Afton's character more. Just providing a basic backstory could have added a lot to the plot. As I said earlier, deciding to only give Afton 2 minutes of screen time at the end is such a waste of his and Vanessa's character, because we know literally nothing of him or of her. The movie failed as a standalone horror film because it was marketed as a horror film, however it just couldn't deliver. The story had confusing plot points and a lot of unexplored material. The movie also fails as a game adaptation because there is very little of the games and lore that was actually adapted to the film. I firmly believe that if the film wasn't a FNAF movie, it would not have raked in as many viewers as it did, and it would have absolutely flopped at the box office and in both audience scores and critic scores. But if the movie had decided to stick a little more to the original story and adapted more gameplay and elements throughout the film, the movie could have perhaps done better in regards to critic scores. With the decision to create a separate story loosely based on the game lore, there was a lot of missed potential. As I have addressed earlier, the story they came up with is something that just wasn't good, and I think the film could have performed better with critics if it just tried to adapt the game lore instead of making its new lore. Because of the new lore they came up with, the movie didn't make much sense at all and left a lot of basic questions unanswered, and especially had a lot of unexplored plot potential. For example, we are never given information as to why Afton killed kids in the first place, because his character wasn't explored at all, and with the whole plot point of Vanessa being his kid, it's missed character potential. Also, making Vanessa his kid doesn't even make sense either for Afton's character. I understand that she was under his control in security breach, but that was when he was dead and a computer virus. I think the whole daughter police officer's plot could have worked way better if they used Elizabeth instead. We know that Elizabeth wanted nothing but to please her father, so her becoming a police officer to hide his murders would make a lot more sense considering her character, and she could have played a way bigger role in the movie. Also, if Vanessa is Afton's only kid, that basically gets rid of any reason as to why he would even have the need to kill children. He killed the 5 kids because his own kids were killed by his own creations, and he wanted to discover how the soul of the children could possess the animatronics so he could put his son back together. That would have made a much more interesting story than whatever we had in the film. And if they did go in this direction, they could have brought in Michael Afton at the end to investigate the murders of his father and to give himself closure over the bite incident. This would make the perfect setup for the sequel and would have made for a much more interesting film. Also, with this new story, there is a lot of important story plots from FNAF that I just feel can't be adapted with this new story, such as the bite of 1983, all of Baby, hell, maybe all of Sister Location, just a lot of things that I'm not sure how they're planning to adapt. I won't ramble as I think I have made my point. The film has a lot of missed potential because of the new story they created, and this new story has basically hindered them from adapting a lot of the cool story moments from FNAF. Not only that, but I strongly believe that the film could have performed a lot better with critics if it just adapted the source material. But also, it's too early to tell exactly what they plan to do with this new story, as we know there will be a sequel, so maybe a lot of the confusing story decisions will be resolved later on. Now, after hearing all of that, you might think I absolutely hated the movie. And, well, that is very much not true. I very much enjoyed the movie and had a great time seeing it with my friends. I liked that the movie was goofy. I had a great time getting excited over all the cameos and Easter eggs, and I greatly enjoyed the music. I especially appreciated that they used the Five Nights at Freddy's song by the Living Tombstone as the credit song. And it felt amazing to see the characters of my childhood finally be on the big screen. It, however, cannot be denied that the movie could have been better. But something the fandom needs to understand is that you can like a movie even though it's bad. If you get upset whenever someone points out a flaw in something you enjoy, you give the series or book or whatever a bad reputation, as well as the rest of the community. What I'm basically saying is, leave the critics alone, they're only doing their job. Finally, the reason this movie is adored by many despite its many flaws is because almost everyone who went to see it has their own personal story with FNAF. The games and community have been around for a long time and have influenced people's lives for a very long time as well. So now it's your turn. What's your story with FNAF? Did you or did you not like the movie? And do you agree or disagree with what I said? Tell me everything down below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and well, goodbye!